And welcome everyone to another recording of the Content Marketing Studio. We're back for another season to help you create better content faster. I am your host, Pascal Fintoni. With my guest, we look at ways for you to build your brand and drive sales. I put the spotlight on communications experts and other professionals to look at ways in which we can create content differently and in a way that really interests your audience. Today, my guest is David Charlton. David is a sports psychologist and a mental toughness coach. David, welcome to the Content Marketing Studio.
Yeah, thank you, Pascal, for inviting me on.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Now, can I start with perhaps a very important question currently? Where are you and how are you doing?
I'm in Brighton, and unfortunately, it's a bit wet and miserable outside there. However, it's not affecting my mood. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm okay. I've been working very hard over the last few months, and as we talked off air, probably in need of a little bit of a rest very soon.
Oh, absolutely. So David actually works with athletes, sports kind of professionals, as well as executives and team leaders to help them reach their goals faster by helping them develop their mental toughness. But also, David is the host of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, which is the reason why he's with us today, because I want to talk to him about podcasting and how he went about introducing this as part of his content marketing activities. To begin with, David, I suppose, like some of our listeners and viewers would be wondering, what do you mean by mental toughness?
Mental toughness, right? Yeah, it's a funny phrase where, some people think it's about being macho. Some people, would say it's a male quality as opposed to a female quality. It's about holding your emotions in. I'm here to say that is a whole load of rubbish, basically. So mental toughness, it's essential right now, because what it is, it's a plastic personality trait. And what I mean by plastic is it's changeable. It's not a case of you're mentally tough or you're not. And it's about dealing with stressors and dealing with pressure. So the more mentally tough you are, the more likely you're able to probably thrive and prosper in a situation like we're in right now with COVID.
So in terms of the term, is it one that, forgive me, you invented or kind of got inspiration from the other sources?
So I certainly can't take the credit for inventing the term. I've got some hair there. There's a Professor Peter Clough he was in Manchester University. He has now changed. I can't exactly say where he's at right now. Professor Peter Clough and his colleagues have come across, they've done over 100 studies worldwide in business, education, health, sport, you name the field, they've done it internationally. And over time, they've gradually moved and tweaked the model to where it is now. And where I mean the model, it's classed as the 4 C's model. So you're talking about in mental toughness, you've got people's commitment levels, their confidence levels, their ability to face challenges, and also the element of control too, which I can maybe talk about in a little bit more detail.
So when you work with your clients, whether they are the athletes or the business leaders, do you use that as a bit of a framework?
Yeah, because underneath all of that, there's a psychometric profiling test, which I'm able to give the athlete, the leader, the team, the organization, and where we can actually measure on a scale of 1 to 10 where you sit in terms of your your overall mental toughness, as well as your commitment, control, confidence levels, and so on. So that report then provides the framework as to understand where the person sits and how I can best move them forward to be able to perform better, or if it's a well-being issue.
Out of interest, what kind of sports have you been involved into in terms of the different styles or kind of sporting activities?
Ooh, Where do you start? So yeah, golf is my, I suppose you could class my number one sport. Where I've worked with England Golf previously, and currently with a range of professionals and what you class as motivated amateur athletes, amateur golfers. But yeah, currently I'm working with a guy who's a motorcyclist, professional motorcyclist, who is top of the championship and has got one race left at Brands Hatch at the weekend. There's professional football, from again the motivated youngster to the Premier League international player. And yeah, I could reel off all the sports, to be honest. But the interesting thing is, though, working with the executive, the entrepreneur, you tend to find that there are very similar challenges that people are facing, and there's a huge overlap between business and sport.
So we're going to move on to talking about your podcasting, because that's at the heart of this conversation. But before I do so, did you have other form of content creation efforts and other ways of marketing before you went on to podcasting? What did you do for the business before the podcast?
Yeah, so I was probably one of those many thousands of people out there who, I'll do a blog, and the blog was a once a month job, which, yeah, let's face it, you might as well not bother at all, right? Writing one if you're going to do it once a month. It's not going to get you to near the top of Google rankings or get you noticed. So in January 2019, that then changed. I decided, right, I'm going to be more professional about this. And since the first week in January 2019, I've published a blog once a week. So we're now at, must be around about 70, 80 blogs, possibly more. However, yeah, I realized even just blogging once a week wasn't enough if I was going to catch the eye in Google, and also, get my message out there ultimately to people.
Yeah, because ultimately you wanted to, become visible to your future customers, I suspect, in the sporting world, or obviously in the business world. So when did the idea of starting a podcast begin for you? So, was it something that has been in the back of your mind for a long time, or it was more like you got some information that suggested that this was actually perhaps something worthy of your consideration?
So I would imagine, since we've known each other for a while, you probably played a part in this, with a few prods and even unconsciously. I'll also think about the whole mental toughness side of things. So you would argue the mentally tough people look at other people, successful people, and I was going to say copy them, but certainly learn from them. So I spent 2019, the back end of 2019, doing my research and noticing what some of the people were doing. And at that point, I was really seriously considering doing a podcast. However, the tech got in the way.
Right.
Yeah. I had a look at it, and well, you can see I've got a microphone on screen, just little things like that. And looking at the editing side of things, it frightened the life out of me, if I'm perfectly honest. So I suppose I addressed those fears, and it'll be around about January time, I joined a group on Facebook, I believe it was, and bit by bit just got a little bit more information, some more knowledge, and then I would say it would have been February, just prior to lockdown, I joined a podcast membership site run by Anna Parker Naples, and in there I found the membership was excellent. It had great content, and it walked you through from A to B how to put the podcast together. as well as there was also a community who spurred you on, any questions you had. Again, that really helped no end. So yeah, before I knew it, by June, it was June when I launched it. Within 3 months of hard work, I was at the point where I was able to launch.
Yeah, I remember the announcement on LinkedIn. I was like, rejoicing. I don't think you can actually, put my name on the list of the kind of well wishers and so on, because no doubt I would have pushed you to do video and not podcast. So the actually on that very subject, I mean, I know the answers might be obvious to some, but why did you go for, let's say, audio only as opposed to video, as would be my preferred format, of course?
Yeah, that is a good question. Okay, I think really it boils down to the research. When I looked at what other people were doing, and maybe I was potentially sucked in by some messaging out there that podcasting was a very good platform in order to increase your visibility. As well, if I'm honest, videos, I've probably shied away from doing videos for whatever reason, whether I'm a little bit self-conscious about it. I don't know. And yeah, podcasting possibly was my step into doing more videos, because I'm currently at the moment actually producing more videos. And yeah, podcasting is potentially just the fact that people can't see my face has given me the confidence then to go on to that stage and produce videos.
But I think to your point, if you look at the data from Ofcom and many other kind of podcasting experts, that the numbers are really suggesting that this is a good time, particularly in the UK, to go ahead. And what you do when you do podcasting, as in audio marketing only, you remove another layer of complexity. And some of the trial and tribulation and some of the kind of heartaches that I could share with you as a video producer, some of them are removed completely when you do audio. I think it's also a far more easier to market. You're going to get more listeners than you would have viewers, because, of course, you can listen when you drive, you can listen when you're doing exercise or doing the dishes or something like this.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, when I think about it, people I speak to in my field in sport, yeah, they might even be hitting a golf ball in practice, which don't get me wrong, I totally disagree, and they shouldn't be doing this, practicing whilst listening to the podcast, but they do it. And again, yeah, coaches I've spoken to who might be out walking their dogs or something like that, yeah, they'll listen to it. So without doubt, it's a growing area. You probably just need to look at how many podcasts have been launched, certainly in 2020 with lockdown. However, that was I've got to get that in there. That certainly wasn't the reason for it for me. It was just so happened to coincide.
No, absolutely. So can we go back a few steps? And because I think it'd be interesting for our viewers and listeners who are thinking of starting their own podcast, maybe had an attempt, but didn't further through. So for me, maybe the lesson I'm taking away already is not to try and do everything on your own. So you joined essentially a community. You were part of a group of people where you had your own support network and access to expertise. And I think that's an important lesson, because nowadays with laptops and the fact that the gear is more and more accessible, the prices are collapsing all the time. There's temptation to do everything on your own.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could probably go onto YouTube and how do you start a podcast, and somebody will tell you, but then yeah, you'll try for a week or two and you'll end up giving up. And that's probably what I did going back a year or so ago. But yeah, by being a part of a community and part of a membership, it from the kit to the understanding the different platforms to really honing your message as well, and that's so important. I looked at my logo, and I must have about 6 or 7 drafts, put it into the group community, asked people their thoughts on it, just the name of the podcast, the key sort of little titles and subtitles towards it, You talked through the initial like about episode, pretty much how to script that. The intros, outros, you name it, it's all encompassing. There was so much to it, but it was right. Concentrate on step one, move on to step two, step three. It was you were just walked through the process.
So can we talk about that then? So how did you go, or what were the iteration process to be happy with the themes you're going to explore with your guests, as well as solo shows, to be happy with the look and feel of the brand, the name, and so on? What did you go through, and now that you've settled on demystifying mental toughness, what does it mean to you? Perhaps it didn't mean even a few months ago.
So yeah, obviously, yeah, demystifying mental toughness. I suppose I talked about that a little bit earlier as to why I chose that name, because I felt that it was a title. Well, mental toughness is a subject which is really misunderstood, and I wanted to get that message out there, that exactly what it is, and how by developing your mental toughness that you can, what sort of impact it can make on you. And the research tells you there's a 25% variation on performance by how mentally tough you are. So then, in terms of the content, I mentioned the 4 C's earlier: commitment, challenge, control, and confidence. What I thought was I would, from Peter, I could dip in really, depending on where my work was at a particular period, into those different areas. So you wouldn't just be hearing the similar podcasts time and time again about, say, dealing with pressure. It would be, well, yeah, for example, let's say a few weeks ago, I interviewed it was a guy who's run over 5,000 days on the trot consecutively. Now that's commitment, serious commitment.
5,000 days. So like, how many years is that? 15 years? I mean, it's 14
years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that is
Well,
serious.
every day for 14 years.
Every day, yeah.
Even Christmas.
Even Christmas. So obviously, yeah, you can explore that. To then, I've interviewed recently a personal trainer who works with celebrities. So body image is a huge thing there, and body confidence. Interviewed for professional footballers who talk about at the elite level how there's a lot of criticism thrown at them, and how they actually deal with criticism is very tough, and how it impacts their communication and again their confidence. So yeah, it's just it's such a huge area, really, with so many like fascinating topics, I find.
Absolutely right. And I almost had this vision of you, David, by the whiteboard, where you began with maybe a couple of words and then they all spin off. And in front of you, you almost, rediscover your specialism and expert area from a content creators and podcast host point of view. And one about, the image, that's also something that is, I would say, recent, because social media has been around forever, it would seem now, more than 10, 15 years. But I think it's newer as a challenge for business owners who have got a kind of public image, as well as athletes.
Yeah, without doubt. So obviously I mentioned about working like in the business field as well with executives. So ensuring that it's a really like professionally set up podcast was really, really important to me. So the logo, like to get that logo right, to get the messaging right was important. Otherwise, yeah, your credibility's out there is thrown away straight away if you don't do that. Little things like you can you can set up a podcast for free, can't you? On Anchor, I think it is. But if you're going to go to that next level of professionalism, then in my eyes, you need to be paying a subscription and really delving into some expert guidance.
Indeed, and it's for me, it's the same investment if it was your website, or if it was your brochure, or your brand. You've got to give it due credit, because also I'd like to imagine that because of the effort you've put in, we'll talk about this in a moment, that probably made it easier to find guests, or for the guests to be happy to spend time with you, because they could tell that you took it seriously.
Yeah, well, initially what I thought was, again, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly, and I'll look to interview like leading experts in the field. So one of the guests, Doug Strikeouts, is like a leading pioneer in mental toughness. He's written about 8 books. So I wanted to get people from like that ilk onto the show ultimately. And it was just a few weeks into the podcast, I can remember I interviewed a guy who'd also been interviewed by somebody else, and he noted straight away. He was like, "Actually, you're quite, you're relaxed and calm." Did the podcast. It was pretty much like we're doing right now, where it's quite a relaxed conversational style, whereas maybe other people who haven't done their homework so much or aren't quite prepared will have about 10 questions there, and they're just reading off a script, one question after another. And that certainly is a skill to interviewing in that respect.
So could I ask, so you've got the key messages, you've got, the thrust of your show. Can we talk about the kit? What did you go for in the end?
So I've got a Blue Yeti microphone, as we can see there, with this lovely shield. And you can't really see, but it's on a stand there. Cost wise, it would probably cost around about £250 to purchase all of that gear, but it is high quality, and the audio does come out very well because of it.
And what are you using to either capture, your voice and the voice of your guest, and then what do you use afterwards? I mean, do you do any editing afterwards?
Yes, I do. Right, and that was a real pain point. So in terms of I use Zoom. That's how I go about it. Just like we're doing now. It's recorded in Zoom. I record it in a video format, although when it comes down to the editing side of things, it is just solely audio is what I'm interested in. I use Audacity to do the editing, and thankfully in the last few weeks I've palmed that off to a VA to do, because it's a big job. It can take a good couple of hours to actually edit a podcast, and from there as well I use Libsyn to host it, and just the whole process really, from the interview is the easy part. It'll take about half an hour plus for an interview, but then it takes a good 3-4 hours or so to edit, to get into Libsyn, to then put it out onto all the other platforms, to put the show notes on your website, and then social media. There's a lot to it. So seeking support is definitely vital. One thing I failed to say though, I do also upload it onto YouTube for SEO purposes. I suppose in all fairness, if you look at the views in comparison to the downloads through Apple, there's no comparison.
Oh yes, it's night and day. Yeah. So do you upload the Zoom video as such on YouTube?
I don't. It's the audio with the demystifying mental toughness image on the all the way through from start to finish.
So in terms of post-production, you have some sympathy, but listen, compared to video post-production, audio post-production is a piece of cake, but, you still have some sympathy from me. I mean, just sort of interest for our audience, and of course, all of you go and check out, David's work. Do you have, when you use Audacity, do you have an intro with a bit of music? Do you have the, the outro, as we call it? Do you have anything in between that you put in?
Yeah, so I've got the intro with like you say, with a nice little bit of music. I've got a sponsor for the show, so that goes at the start. Then generally, I wouldn't do this every time because I like to get quite quickly into the show. But if I've got a project going on, then I want to potentially sell something, then I'll do a little call to action at the start. You'll then go through the interview, which is generally around about 30 minutes long. And then again, another call to action followed by the outro music, the thank you to the sponsor, and then the end, just pointing people to my mailing list.
Where did you get the intro with the music and so on? How did you go about crafting that?
So I can't think exactly what the website was. However, there are different websites out there. What I would say is, though, to people, be a little bit careful on that one, because it's very easy to spend too much on some music. No doubt about it. I'm trying to think. Audio Jungle might be the potentially the website. Yeah.
Well, I know of it. Certainly, yeah. It could be one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that one was the one I used, and I think that was reasonably priced. But there are certainly some out there which, you can pay 3-4 times as much.
So in terms of the Libsyn, this is obviously, just to give an analogy for our viewers and listeners, a YouTube platform, for audio. So it goes on Libsyn. But what Libsyn does, well, from my understanding, which is not as good as yours, it would then distribute it onto the podcast directories and channels like Spotify and many others. So have you been able to keep track of where your episodes are being featured, on which channels they're being featured?
Yeah, so you, in the configuration initially, it asks you what destinations you want to publish it on. Like you say, your Spotify, Stitchers, YouTube, you put all that information in there. And then there are a range of different websites out there where you can track your statistics to see like where the majority of the listeners are actually coming from.
I know that you like your data, Monsieur Charlton. So in terms of the dashboard, do you use Libsyn or do you use a different platform altogether?
So I do use Libsyn for the data. That's where I have a look at it. I look on a weekly basis to see how many downloads I've got. And it also shows you there each episode, it's amazing actually, just by looking at each episode, you can see which ones are the most popular ones. And then it gives you a little bit of food for thought in terms of the future episodes and future recordings.
I think you're right. And it's great because, we rarely get that data on, kind of user behavior or content consumer behavior for things like Blogger, you mentioned a moment ago, whatever. Sometimes we kind of think we know what people want, but to get that, rich data is going to be great. Can I ask a very practical question on behalf of our audience again? How do you go about finding guests and how do you go about inviting them onto the show?
Right. That process is actually quite straightforward, really. I suppose, you've got your social media platforms. So I'll look at influencers, generally people who do have a lot of connections on their social media platforms. And if they're active on social media or not, because ideally you want them to go on and promote the episodes too. Again, if they've written a book and they're influential in their field in that respect. Also, there's a website out there called listennotes.com.
Yeah.
And you can have a look at where the high ranking podcasts are there. And potentially something I'll do is from time to time is pick out a leading expert who's got a podcast as well, and seek them out. And yeah, generally, really, it's just for me, it's just a message out there to say, look, I'd love to have you on my show, and could we talk about this topic or that topic? And I think, in all honesty, which really surprised me, probably out of 10 people, 9.5 will respond to you and with a positive response and are really eager to please you. Yeah, when you initially start it, I think it's very easy to put that barrier up yourself and think, "Oh, am I good enough if I approach?" Yeah, if I approach such and such, there's no chance they're gonna like do an interview with me. But that's certainly has not been my experience.
And I've heard this mentioned so many times. We all will do that. I've done it. When I launched the Content Marketing Studio in 2016, I thought I'm going to struggle to get people to be interested, whatever. But I think there's people, the right ones, which actually you want as guests, will remember their own humble beginnings. And generally, they're passionate about what they do, and if they have the time. And what I would argue, as much as you launched your podcast during the pandemic, which wasn't part of the plan, I think we've all benefited from people being stuck at home, therefore being more available to us as guests.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I know there's a few of my guests. I don't think there's any chance I would have got them, say, in the summer months. But yeah, I was able to get a bank of content in May time. Yeah, because of their availability, and where that certainly wouldn't be happening right now. One thing I would add. In Libsyn, what I've found has been really helpful for me is once you press the button to publish, it automatically goes on these platforms. However, that is not the end of the work, to say the least. Libsyn also allows you to publish it on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn with obviously with some comments. However, what that does is it publishes it with an image and then a link to your website. To go a step further, I use an app called Headliner, which I pay for.
Right.
Which has it's a little audiogram where you'll put an image together with the image of the guest and a little 1 or 2 lines. Yeah, a nice bit of information with this audiogram, and then again during the course of the week or the particular day of the podcast goes out, you would put that onto your social media. But to go to the next level really is using groups on Facebooks and LinkedIn's and on a consistent basis and pushing it out there. That helps the reach no end.
Yeah, so for all of you and listening, again, adding to your toolkit to make life easier, but also for me, it's a reminder that the hardest job when it comes to the content marketing bit is not the creation of the content, because most of us will eventually get a head around it, even though it could be a new format, as was the case with you in podcasting. The content distribution is the challenge, and it's been the challenge ever since I work in marketing from my younger days doing video, promotional videos in VHS cassettes. And we got the boxes of VHS cassettes in the office, but then we had to send the damn things to our customers. And we forgot about this bit, So I think the distribution is always the bit that people need to do better. Can I quickly ask as well about the sponsor? But it's similar to the guesting. So, I mean, you are a newer, podcaster, one could argue. You're doing very well, but you're new, and yet you're almost against, I would say, established wisdom. You got a sponsor quite early on. How did you manage that?
Yeah, I came to an agreement with a local sports injury clinic who I utilize with my work to sponsor the show, and obviously I would help them publicize their work and vice versa. That was the way it worked for me. I suppose I was quite fortunate in that respect. I know generally you would probably look at the amount of downloads, and you certainly wouldn't bump into getting a sponsor straight away. In normal circumstances, it would take you time to build that up. And interestingly enough, actually, with this site that I've talked about, the support, they talk about not just the launch, they talk about growing it to monetizing it, and guesting as well, which is like really, really helpful.
So yeah, on that point, that have you yourself, as we're doing together, are you now a guest on other podcasts or videocasts to also promote the show that you're creating?
Yeah, so I make it part of my process on a weekly basis, where if I'm not trying to get on a podcast, I'll try and get in the media as well. I was on Times Radio last week, which was quite nice. So yeah, you've got to do as much as you possibly can to boost your profile in that way.
Because I thought that you obviously updated your LinkedIn profile to include that you were a podcaster. Again, one could say, well, I'll wait until I've done lots and then I can tell the world that I have a podcast. And then you are also then, guesting yourself. Am I right in thinking that you also, have plans to probably in future repurpose some of the episodes and start to make good use of that great content?
Yeah. So the plan going forward for me is to put together. I'm currently putting together a 4-week online program. I would say this time next year, after I've done a few different 4-week programs, I'll look to put a membership site together where, we'll take snippets of the important parts of the podcast and, like you say, repurpose them and really help the members of the site. That's the grand plans. Actually,
go on.
Yeah. And now, don't quote me on this one. 2 years ago, I said I was going to write a book. Now, I started the process. I did some interviewing, and yet just things that didn't quite work out for me, where the book was shelved. However, after getting some advice and having a bit of a rethink, the podcast, watch this space, but the podcast could well inform a book going forward as well, which could be like really, really helpful in my work.
Now, you are probably the third person that I've interviewed who have said that the practice of podcasting, stroke video casting, if you want to use my version, has always been one that has then allowed to move on to something else, because you're in that conversation mode, you're in that reflective mode, you're probably challenging yourself a lot more than you would normally. Fascinating, isn't it? So there's merit, in terms of considering podcasting from a business development point of view, but I wonder there's also one around personal growth. Yeah,
well, as far as personal growth goes, it doesn't improve your confidence levels, and it helps you, overcome little blocks and fears in that respect. As well as, obviously, it just, from a PR angle, it elevates you, no doubt about it. And for me to be thinking pretty confidently about putting a book together, just really from podcast content, as well as obviously my private work, is something I certainly wouldn't have thought was possible a few years ago.
So at the time of recording this interview, David, you are 4 months into your kind of extra, activity as a podcaster. I sense that there's little regrets.
Zero regrets. No, I really enjoy it. Like I said, thankfully I've got the assistant to help me now with the editing. So yeah, there was part of me thinking, do I actually throw in another interview? So I do, rather than 1 a week, I do 2 a week. I'm just going to settle with 1 for now. But yeah, that's the best part. Picking the brains of guests and having some nice conversations like this one today.
Absolutely. It creates a bit of legacy for your family. I mean, I know that your children are a bit too young to be impressed by dad having his own kind of radio show, but I'm sure it'll come.
Yeah, we'll see about that one.
Or just be embarrassed, like, oh no. So listen, it's we've got a mental toughness coach on this interview, so I can't let you go without asking for. So again, we globally are going through difficult times. There's lots of different challenges and so on, and I wonder whether there would be some kind of rules or kind of mantras that would come to mind when you think about the fact that we're approaching the winter months, that we're approaching more challenges as individuals, as professionals, and so on, that you could dip into your mental toughness knowledge.
Yeah, that's the thing about this one. So yeah, our well-being is going to be challenged, hugely over the winter months. If we're honest about it, we're not going to see a great deal of daylight, are we? So what I think what I would encourage people is try and take as much control over the situation as you possibly can, which is very difficult because it's quite overwhelming, the whole situation, and it seems to be changing day by day. One thing I would do is a little task for you, the listener, is or the viewer, is to create a well-being menu. So little things, little habits that help you on a day-to-day basis. So that could be, going to bed, in my case, because I've got 2 young kids, at about 9:30, bright and early. And I try to get up, if I'm doing things well anyway, at about 6 o'clock prior to the kids. So I get a nice little bit of quiet time to, if it's possible, it is at the moment, you might want to pamper yourself and get a massage from a beautician's or something from time to time. Exercise in the daylight, to eating nice and healthily, but eating some good stuff, drinking water, all of those little simple things. And if you create a little menu like that, and perhaps just have that handy by the side of the bed or stuck on a fridge or something like that, so you can just go back from it time to time to ensure that you're ticking those things off on a regular basis. And if you're not, then hopefully it can then give you a bit of a boot to take control of the situation, then and go back and do the basics well.
I like that. I've never heard of it, but I understand the concept in the well-being menu. And I wonder, it could almost be fun to do it as part of a family, thing where parents and kids and others, kind of discuss and compile their own individual menu. But I wonder whether there's merit in also exploring it in a business setting. If you're a team leader, where at the moment you've had to manage teams remotely, maybe, and there's also things that have been added to make professional life more complicated. And I wonder if there would be a great exercise to do again as a team to kind of understand each other's well-being menu, which would be different, I suspect.
Yeah, I can see how that would work out. It would have a massive impact on a team if you've got 20, 30, 50 people there who are actually, rather than just letting things happen to them, they're actually taking ownership, taking control. Then it could transform certainly the conversations that are being had on a day-to-day basis and promote more of a positive vibe to it.
Yeah, and then you could make people, in groups, or you could have a buddy system where people could be accountable. So, how are you doing this week against your well-being menu? Have you ordered from the menu sufficiently? And someone could say, no, actually, I've been a bit, lax. I've been doing a lot of work stuff, a lot of things that aggravate me, and I should actually be careful. So, I can see that actually being a great point of conversation for people.
Yeah, I suppose the challenge there, the difficulty is a lot of managers, especially when they're under stress and pressure, they get busy and busier. So this is like a coaching sort of approach, and actually just having conversations with their staff about problems and potential solutions, that goes out the window. So it could be hugely helpful. Well, I suppose one thing to note, I suppose I was quite serious with the different points I mentioned there about sleep and thing and all that. You can add some fun stuff in there as well. For me, on my little well-being menu, there's making sure I listen to a little bit of a comedy sketch on a daily basis. I do like a bit of Michael McIntyre.
So. Yeah, likewise. Yeah.
Those sort of things are massively important to. I know some guys I've done it with, having a sing along in the car or the shower or something like that. But yeah, I won't. I'm tone deaf, so that's not for me.
Now, there's one thing that somebody that actually you may know, Chris Ducker, was talking about is adjusting his daily routine. And one thing that is reintroduced is listening to music whilst working, because again, these are very, very different times. And I was thinking, yeah, there's something I've not done for a very long time, which is to have music in the background that you would enjoy whilst doing obviously something that, and you're right, they are very simple things in addition to sleeping and eating that can just completely transform your mindset throughout the day.
Yeah, like you said, but sometimes it is the simple things which are the most important. Yeah, you talk about adjusting your day. As you know, I enjoy keeping fit and doing exercise, and it does worry me a little bit going into this winter period, whereby you're going to see daylight from what 9 o'clock through till 3:30,
Yeah.
and the thought of sitting at my desk zooming people and whatever it is during those 6 hours of daylight, and then doing some exercise potentially when it's pitch black dark, if I'm honest, is not appealing to me. So potentially, if you've got the flexibility like I have, then yeah, just changing how you go about your day so you get some of that vitamin D to help your mental health could well be again a very helpful little tactic.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe changing completely the schedule of the day to match, what we need. Well, I always knew that to have a mental toughness coach can be interesting on this show, but I must be truthful to the brief and agenda that we gave ourselves, which is talk about podcasting. And unfortunately, our time together has only come to an end. So guess what? You may get a second invitation to talk about investing in yourself. So before I let you go, I would like to ask you to take part in a bit of a fun quiz, since you've declared that you like a bit of humor. So these are fun questions, and I want you to kind of give me the answer that comes to mind immediately. So if you could have a Zoom call with a top sporting celebrity, who would that be?
Yeah, I think it would have to be Tiger Woods.
I thought you might say that.
yeah, I didn't have to think about that one at all. I'd love to know how he's done what he's done in his career.
Well, I'll make sure that this is featured in the show notes. So maybe with a bit of luck and fair wind, maybe the message will reach Tiger Woods. If you could organize an online concert, kind of a private concert via the interweb for you and your family, who would be the artist or the band that would play for you and your family?
Ooh, that is a tough one. I used to be a Bon Jovi fan in the
Right.
day, yeah. I think we'd have to actually, but yeah, let's put that one to one side. That was a long time ago. They would have to go for Ed Sheeran.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, I think he'd be up for it as well. He's that kind of character, isn't he?
He seems that way, yeah.
So, well, since you're having your own online concert with Ed Sheeran, you can also order some nice food. What would you order for you and the family?
Yeah, it has to be an Indian. Yeah, I like a. Well, I was going to say I like a chicken tikka masala, but that's you could literally. I'm one of those guys when it comes down to Indian food where I'll have chicken tikka masala 1 week, then the next time I go it's something else. I like trying different things on the menu, apart from like the really really hot ones.
Yeah, excellent. So, guess what? Your podcast has been noticed by a radio station, and they've invited you to have your own radio show as part of their weekly schedule. And you're allowed to have one co-host. So, what would be the show that you're going to go for? What would be the theme of the show, and who would be your co-host?
Right. So it would be a sporting, whether it would be on Sky Sports or a Talk Sport radio show. The title of the show would be, I was going to say Demystifying Mental Toughness there. It might well be. It would be along those lines.
They could buy the rights, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Damn right they could, yeah. And then who would have as a co-host?
Yeah.
I'll go for a famous number 9 who used to play for Newcastle, Alan Shearer.
Wow, I think that would be great. I think that would work really well. And final question for you: when all this is behind us, you're allowed to have one trip with you and the family. Where would you go?
Yeah, we've been talking about this actually. So, yeah, I've got relatives in Perth in Australia,
Right.
and they keep sickly sending me some like lovely images of the beach and things like that. And I haven't been for a good 10 years or so. And there's an island just off there called Rottnest Island. It's like paradise. Yeah, that's exactly where I'd go.
No, excellent. Well, listen, David, thank you so much for taking part in the Content Marketing Studio. In fact, you helped me launch a mini series called Meet the Podcasters. If people have more questions on podcasting and indeed mental toughness, where can they find out more about you and your work?
Okay, right. So on social media, I'm pretty active across a range of channels. If you looked at it under David Charlton on LinkedIn, I'm there. Twitter, you can get me on D Charlton Sport. And then again, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I'm under Mental Toughness Matters. I'm even on TikTok now, believe it or not, to promote the podcast. And the website, my sporting website is the 3Ws sport-excellence.co.uk. And then the business orientated website is the 3Ws.lookingchallengeintheeye.com.
Excellent. So for all our listeners, don't worry, don't stop the car and grab a pen and paper. All these will be in the show notes as well. So David, thank you so much. Wishing you and your family, the very best for the coming months. For all of you out there, thank you for your support. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Studio. Until the next one, go out there and make sure your content is better and faster. Bye for now.
Yeah, bye. Thank you for inviting me on the show.